Let me go." Old Man opened Buddy's door at that moment. Ghost sleeved off his tears fast, turned around and lowered his head, glaring. "You can't stop me," he said. Old Man stepped forward. Ghost's eyes darted around to look behind Old Man for a way out. He'd brought some shivers over here. "You belong to Shiver," Old Man said, voice sounding sort of kind. "I'm sorry for my hard words, but I was upset over hearing what you tried to do. Can you forgive me?" "I don't hold grudges," Ghost said. "I want you to remember something you promised me a while ago," Old Man said. "You said, 'I don't ask why, I just do what I'm told.'" Ghost stayed silent. "I need some trust from you right now," Old Man said. "This is a difficult time for you. I've been through similar shit." Ghost glanced back at Buddy. Her face was kind of red. Was she mad? "Ghost," Old Man repeated, "can you do that? Can you trust me to get you through this? We're all here for you." The shivers in the hall looked at each other, and Ghost doubtfully. I heard what you said," Ghost said. "You didn't mean that?" He waited for Old Man's hesitation to stop, that moment when he opened his mouth, when he'd be focused on saying the words convincingly. Then he darted forward to duck around Old Man, but Old Man caught the arm he used for balance, twisted, and pressed Ghost's momentum into the dresser. All the stress was on his wrist. The edge of the dresser cut in just above Ghost's hip as he leaned back to avoid the pressure Old Man put on his right wrist and elbow. The threat was that if Ghost moved, Old Man would bust the joints. Old Man knew Ghost's body well enough from training him that he knew exactly how much pressure it took to make it hurt. He did. "That was low," Old Man said calmly, twisting harder. Stop, Ghost said, breathing hard. "All right, I quit. You win." "Let him go," Buddy interrupted. "He said you win." "Stay out of this," Old Man said, making it hurt. Ghost winced and grabbed Old Man's wrist, tapping it. Old Man always used to release him when he tapped out. Today he didn't seem to want to. "I'll give you one more chance," Old Man said, holding his wrist there. Ghost nodded hastily. Old Man let go. Ghost released his breath, turning half away and cradling his wrist. He let Old Man do a long speech that would normally be pretty convincing. He stayed mostly silent, then started nodding occasionally. He pretended to be persuaded slowly, giving resistance at certain moments, then pretending to be swayed. Old Man probably hadn't noticed exactly how closely Ghost had been watching him. Ghost was simply copying the verbal sparring tactics that Old Man had used on him. He let Old Man think he had sufficiently brought down Ghost's self-respect. He nodded at the subtle accusations. He could see Buddy, still confused, out of the corner of his eye. She looked anxious. "When you take those situations into your own hands, those are the results you get." Ghost listened, expressionless. "Does that make it clearer to you?" Old Man said. "I think so," Ghost said, scratching his forehead. "Then, what can I do to earn your trust?" It might be a dirty trick, but fighting dirty was what Ghost did best. He studied Old Man's face. Old Man also tended to hide his feelings. "Let's walk back to my place. We'll talk over expectations there." They'd crossed the courtyard. Ghost nodded. Buddy stayed in her chair looking confused as they left. Ghost waved to her. She looked up at him, worried, then back down at her gritty nails like she felt bad. Ghost turned back to follow Old Man. Sun had thawed the ground enough to make it full of air pockets and muddy, with clumps of snow here and there in the shade. Cloud said that more snow was coming. He squinted in the early morning sun. When they reached the middle of the courtyard, that was the moment he chose. Old Man let him walk a few feet away like he trusted him, but his reaction was lightning fast when Ghost bolted. Ghost was faster. On the treacherous ground, Old Man slipped, and several shivers outright fell when they tried to catch him before he got out of reach. "Stop him!" Old Man bellowed. His frail vocal cords trembled. Ghost ran carefully, lightly stepping and focusing on smaller steps, sucking his body in close. He took a huge lungful of cold air and opened his mouth wide to let it through him. The daylight glare was so much that he could hardly see. He smiled at the muddy ground. It felt so good to be running. Shivers surrounded the courtyard in a U-shape. He dodged past a few of the faster ones, ducked hands, and slipped over legs moved to trip him. They grabbed his arms, but instead of pulling back, he twisted and shifted his weight, snapping out of grasp just before their grip tightened. Nobody shot at him, not till he got over the barricade. They couldn't climb after him. Nobody was as fast. He ran up it like a goat, hardly suppressing a giggle of excitement. A gunshot made him flinch, surprised. He jumped down, shoving in his earplugs after he landed in a low crouch. He kept going. It only took a few seconds to find cover, and he kept going, even though his lungs felt like they were dying. Lots of people used the uncollapsed metro tunnels for a straight route. Not Ghost. He hated feeling trapped, confined. You can't dodge in a tight space, really. He couldn't run on top of roofs in broad daylight, though. He could hardly see. It was too bright. Not to mention the main danger. Sentries that thought of Ghost as an enemy. They'd been intimidated by him. Now that just put a target on his back. He clambered up into a building's second floor and collapsed next to the wall, panting hoarsely. He coughed, covering his mouth to muffle it, not that it really helped. It was so cold. Even the heat racing down his arms was whisking off in the breeze. His throat hurt, and his wrist ached as well. He touched it lightly, trying to see where and what kind of damage it had gotten. His other injuries didn't require as much caution to heal. This one would. He got up slowly, moving through the house to the kitchen. There was no roof, and the walls were blasted open, and the counter had been flipped up, but then had slipped back down, covering the pantry doors and drawers. 2 things you could find in this type of place: bodies and cheaper loot. They could both be encountered in the crevices Ghost could fit himself into. He crept down between the countertop and the drawers. Cockroaches skittered over his hands. He released one from under his right finger. "Sorry," he whispered to it. "Poor thing." "Hey," he said into the darkness. He hoped to startle away any larger creatures. "Hey!" No response. He crawled in and checked in the drawer under the oven. Pans, trays, and a mouse. The next drawer was full of cloths. He stuffed them into his waistband. He couldn't open the other 2, and he didn't want to disturb the ruins too much, trying to force it. If you did, you could end up in a pile of rubble. Lots of houses were just hanging on by a thread. He paused and hunched at the sound of a copter over his head. They passed slowly. A long time ago, people used to get shot at on sight from the copters. Now, people just always hid. Ghost checked the last cupboard and found food. 12 cans of mostly tomato paste. "Food," he whispered. "Hell yes." With some new clothes he found, a backpack of cans and a blanket, Ghost emerged from hiding at dusk. Rooting around and ducking out of sight from gang patrols had taken most of the day. Time to get the fuck out of Seattle.